What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Daily Sean. For those of you who don't know, my name is Sean. I do a daily video on something related to nursing, for rhyme or reason, probably not going to change. We're talking about respiratory therapists today, the bread and butter of all things pulmonary. For someone who works in critical care for as long as I have developed very strong relationships with the respiratory therapists. Many critical care nurses will tell you how important your respiratory therapist is to the entire medical team and to the overall care of your patient. I have a hard time grasping the concept of nurses not appreciating respiratory therapists. It's just something that I have a hard time even understanding exists. I came up with 5 things that I'd like you to think about the next time that you interact, see, or speak with a respiratory therapist. Number 1, they do the same crap that you have to do. For those of us that have to work side by side with respiratory therapists, they walk the same walk that you do. They work the same crappy shifts that you do. They have to work holidays. They have to work weekends. They are almost found in every setting that a nurse is found. I'm willing to bet 75% of the time where there's a nurse, there's a respiratory therapist. Most of the time, respiratory therapists have the same pains that we have in regards to staffing. So imagine a respiratory therapist, a singular respiratory therapist, having to care for an entire floor of patients or more. I know from personal experience respiratory therapists who are in charge of multiple floors that consist of multiple levels of acuity with each patient. It's mind-boggling how much responsibility they are given. They're going through the same crap you're going through. Number 2, they have as much education as you do. The last time I checked, the bare minimum requirement for a nurse to actually sit for their exam, an associate's degree or above, in order to qualify and sit for the NCLEX exam. Same thing applies for respiratory therapists. They have to have a bare minimum of an associate's degree, but just like the world of nursing, they are slowly progressing to a minimum of a bachelor's degree. They too also have to eventually sit for a certification. Now, I might be misspeaking here, but I'm almost positive that most respiratory therapists can start working and not be certified, and then they can sit and take for their certification exam. For any of my respiratory therapists out there, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Number 3, they have to deal with all of the other crap that we deal with too. How many times do you think a respiratory therapist has to go in and out of a patient's room? Probably just as much as we do. Depending on the level of acuity, the RT is going to go in and out of that room over 1,000 times, just like you. And they have to deal with the difficult communication between the family members and the friends of the patients. They too get verbally abused by the patient, get spit on by the patient, quite literally. I made a funny there. Respiratory therapy, spit, get it, haha, okay. They also deal with all the bodily fluids. They are as much of a team player as your fellow nursing coworkers. Please start treating them as such. Number 4, they are the go-to person when it comes to all things pulmonary. I personally defer and confer with my respiratory therapist on a daily basis of what would be the best course of action for an individual patient, depending on what kind of therapy we should use, what kind of nebulizer we should use, what kind of pulmonary treatments are we considering, pulmonary toileting, the advanced ventilator management settings. The respiratory therapist is an integral part of that process. The next time that you see a ventilator, the first thing you should think of is thanking your respiratory therapist. Next time that, and it doesn't even have to be a ventilator. Doesn't even have to be a ventilator. The next time your patient is on oxygen, thank a respiratory therapist. 99.9% of your patients are going to be on oxygen if you work in the hospital. make sure you thank your respiratory therapist. And number 5, this one kind of angers me a little bit, so I have a hard time saying this without yelling, but I'll say it anyway. The respiratory therapists are there to help you. They are not your lackey. They are not there to do your bidding. They are an integral part of the overall team. An integral part of the medical team. They provide a specific set of services that are highly specialized. That does not mean that you call them in to do your dirty work. Just because you don't like sputum, you don't like spit, they're there to assist and help you. It is not solely their job to take care of putting oxygen on a patient or suctioning a patient. We are all in this together, and we should start treating each other that way. What do you have to say about respiratory therapists? Have any good stories? Let's show our support. Leave me a comment down below. Your comments are my caffeine. Share this with somebody. And as always, check your own pulse first.